angaphandle kwala eMzansi, ama-comrades ePhudemo, eSwazini, i-Communist Party yaseSwazini, kanye nama-comrades ethu ase-DRC. Ngithemba ukuthi angishiyi umuntu la. You are all welcome. Comrades, Phudemo of Swaziland, the Communist Party of Swaziland, and our comrades from the DRC. Bese ngibingelela nina nonke ke ma-comrades. Ngithemba ukuthi ake ungakhohlwa kanjani. Comrade Benson, nobhala we-SACP Western Cape. Noma bese ngiwamukele wonke amalungu Central Committee, but angikwamukele njengonobhala walaphana eWestern Cape, Comrade Benson njengoba esethuliwe. Sengiyaphenduka ke manje sengibona nonobhala wenehawu. Khona la singazwani khona kancane nje kwenye indawana. Ngokwama deployment. But sindawonye nje awuzuthi ngoba naku ngumqashi Samuel angideploywe khona bese ufuna ukuzongidoyitela la. Ngeke futhi ungidoyitele emabovini kwami lana wethu. Ya, kwami lana mfowethu ungangizama nje kwenye indawo kodwa la ngeke ungithinte. Sekhaya la ngikhona. Comrade Zola Sapeta, we are most welcome. The General Secretary wenehawu. Inyunyana yakithi lesisebenza nayo kahle kakhulu. Siyamakomanisi. Comrades, as I greet you all, allow me perhaps before I proceed, just to express our sincere gratitude as the SACP nationally, the Central Committee, to the collective of the PEC of this province and every member of the party here for the good work that we have done between your last Congress and this one, for keeping the red flag flying and for growing and strengthening the SACP in KZN. Muhle lo msebenzi enwenzile. This year we have held our party provincial congresses at Free State, Limpopo, Moses Kotane and Western Cape Province, which is towards our 15th National Congress in July. Therefore, we expect no less from this equally important Moses Mabhida Provincial Congress, which is our single largest province of the SACP, that you also set an example in the manner in which you hold this Congress. We have already done so in some respects. Ngiqala ngesikhathi awabangwa ama-credentials la. Kontombe engiyibhekayo lapha. Awabangwa ama-credentials kwa-SACP. Because ama-credentials are about the integrity ye-organization. Manibanga ama-credentials kusuke kukhona into engalunganga. Angizobiza igama lamuntu. Siyabonga ukuthi nikhulise iparty la. Nanokuthi ke ngiyafisa ama-comrades ngicela ukuyisho lento. Since ngaba uGeneral Secretary ngo-1998, I was 40 years old. Sengigugela la embuthweni. 40 ngikhetwa ukuba uGeneral Secretary ngo-1998. Ngesikhathi ngikhethwa, and since then, we have never had ama-elections ukukhetha Central Committee. Siyahlala siqoqa beforehand sizwane sivumelane bese siyase siyothi nawo ama-congress esifuna ukuwakhetha. Nawo wonke lamanye ama-congress Mhleko ahambe kanjani? Mhleko? 3, 4 ahambe kanjani? Engathi naleyeni ngihamba kanjalo. Bese nisithatha-ke le spirit ma-comrades. Nisiyise kwi-15th National Congress. There is nothing wrong with contest my elections, but also it's all the good if we try and unite ourselves and not divide ourselves. Engathi ngenxa ye-leadership, engathi naku-15th Congress kungekhethwe, especially ama-national office bearers. Manizwa ukuthi nikhumbula i-democracy, hayi kama-additional members e-Central Committee manithanda ningavotela. Manikhumbula i-democracy, but ama-officials lobe ngaba khona awakazavotela. Ngiyayisho lento ma-comrades because I want to say some things here kule Congress ezingikhontsenayo as uGeneral Secretary. Ukuthi there are some creeping bad tendencies that are beginning to happen in the SACP. You are the single largest province. And I've said, because of that, you have got additional responsibility, not by imposing yourself through numbers, but by acting as an example. You are the single largest province, you're going to act by example, not by imposing yourself. But there are certain tendencies that are beginning to creep into the Communist Party that are of concern. There is encroaching use of money and patronage to begin to contest some of our party structures. Lento emali siqala ukuvela. Nalento yokuthenjiswa ikhundla. Ukuthi manikhetha abantu abathile kwi-Communist Party, thina esinamandla okunika abantu izikhundla, sizonipha izikhundla. You see, some of the things ezenzekayo ayimandatiwe iparty lezinto, kodwa imkhutshana nje eqala ukwenzeka. Njengomthakathi ohamba ebusuku, egibela imfene, iyale, kodwa ibambe ngasemsileni ebhekele. Kanti siyabona ukuthi no kuyiwa le. Omunye ahambe quietly ayokhuluma nefaction ye-ANC yabona ukuthi ngathi win. Ukuthi hayi, uma ngase niwine, if you can win, ngizonisupport mina ngiyi-leader eparty somewhere. Ngise-traction ze-leadership ze-Communist Party. Bambuza omunye ukuthi uzanani? Wathi hayi ngizana structure separty. Kodwa iparty ayivote nje kwa-ANC. Pho yini lo zosikhulumelayo? Nake ngithatha manje. Uhamba ngomnyama ucabanga ukuthi asimboni. Uyocela izikhundla ukuthi in case le faction iwina, ngocela ngiphi isikhundla. Comrades, this is foreign to the South African Communist Party. We must deploy. We go and engage the ANC as official structures about our own comrades. We have done that before, we are going to continue to do that. That's a bad tendency. Any tendency which is beginning to feature ile factionalism. Ukuthi uma kukhuluma ubani emhlanganweni, I must ukuthi ngimphikise. Noma ngabe usho into right kanjani, because it's him or her, then I must disagree with that person. That's beginning to behave like a faction. Asiwafuna ama-factions kwi-Communist Party. Ama-factions in the SACP are illegal. Once kwakhona abantu abazigroupa as a faction, bakonfrontele ama-comrades, sibaxoshe, asishode ngama-members of South African Communist Party. They must go. You must do that here, and you must do it at the National Congress as well. Ngakhethwa ukuba uGeneral Secretary mina on the basis of these principles. Lento factionalism that is beginning, and tribalism also is beginning to creep in the SACP. Ukuthi thina sama comrades aqhamuka from particular provinces, and therefore we must act in a particular way. We must defeat that as well. Whereas our comrades arguing the same point, they come from the same area, they have actually caucused because they are beginning to identify themselves in other characteristics other than being members of the South African Communist Party. I'm going now, Comrade Jenny, to be presenting a framework of the Central Committee political report to the Central Committee, Special Central Committee now in June, November. And I'm getting ready. The hieroglyphics, it's here. And it's typed now. 70% of it. I'm so share la okunye mthembu. Ngoba ngizoweza amanye questions engizowajikijela nobuza kamuva nohlangana nawo phambili. I'm not going to present this political report, draft, at the next Special Central Committee, because our Central Committee is beginning to leak to the media. We sit there, we talk. The next thing on Sunday, it's in the Sunday World, it's a headline, Unzimandu te, ubanu te. kukhona isifo esingenayo ma comrades. Go to the National Congress and shut this down. But we must do it, to begin to do it here amongst ourselves. Now, we have to defeat these tendencies. You know, we can't go back to the 1930s. The Communist Party yaphela ngo-1930s. Iqedwa yizo lezi zinto. It was saved by Moses Kotane, who wrote a letter from Craddock. Correcta lezi zinto, and the Communist Party is where it is today. Not least because of that historic contribution by Kotane. We must defend the South African Communist Party to stand for its principles. Kufana nokuthi ukuyona izinto ze-deployment yasemsebenzini. That is wrong. Uma uqabana noMthembu, simdeployile as a deputy speaker, uyimember yeparty, ulapha e-office lakhe, wenza ukuganga izinto ezi-wrong, uMthembu uma ekufaka endleleni, ubuye uthi uzobika la ku-Communist Party. Zihlanganiseni lezi zinto ne-Communist Party. Kwesinye isikhathi uyabheda ngempela emsebenzini. Yes, uyabheda, but uyilungu lepati, but emsebenzini uyabheda. Kufanele ukuthi ufakwe endaweni. There is also no person who is entitled to be deployed by the Communist Party. I have no entitlement to be deployed by the Communist Party. The Communist Party deploys me because it has taken. Ngizoyisho lento, by the way, comrades in the Central Committee. I will repeat this thing at Congress. I'm not saying it here because in the Congress of Ngizoyisho with National Congress. And I want these things to be debated. Asingasebenzisa i-Communist Party ukuyona izinto zasemsebenzini. Uma unenkinga nangu uzola ukhona inehawu ikhona. Shona kuzola, uyakumele uzola capably. Musukuthatha lezo zinto uzoxabanisa i-Communist Party. Some of us become disciplined and you keep quiet. What is actually the truth? Because if we can tell the truth, we can destroy comrades who try and present. Also, sometimes unaware, we are a deployed leader of the Communist Party. You take certain actions, you don't realize that actually what we have done, we have disturbed certain patronage networks that were beginning to take place. And we become aware of those things. We don't want to raise them recklessly because we are not wanting to destroy people. So, comrades, I'm spending a bit of time on this because the only way to defeat these tendencies is to begin to confront them early. Isn't it wrong as is confronted early zisenzeka? Umbutho wethi ANC ngizobuyela ngisho lento. Like uComrade uDaye besho. ANC iface ama problems amaningi comrades. Ngalesikhathi. And some nkomanisi asikwazi ukujabula sithi izinto azihambi kahle ku-ANC. We must be there in our own right as members of the ANC ukulungisa lezo zinto ngoba ayibalekile le ANC, by the way. Isabalekile sadingekile. But idingeke i-ANC engenayo leminye imikhuba eyenzekayo njengamanje. Ezinye zale zinto ama-comrades ethu amanye ANC yase-Western Cape, Comrade Benson, have been honest to us and say, you know, this thing started slowly until we lost the province, until we lost the metro, the Cape Town metro. And still things were starting slowly because you thought you were in power, everything is all right, you can just do whatever you want to do, and so on. Kukhona izinto ezenzekayo manje embuthweni wethu which are unacceptable. I've never seen such a thing. Ngiku-ANC kwamina, ngiyi-leader ye-ANC. Uma kuyiwa kwi-conference, kuqashele la hotela foreign infection, iqashele la hotela foreign infection. Maye babo. Ivelaphi leyo nto. And kwamanye kudistribute imali iyakhishwa nje kuthiwa na bambani maqabane bambani. Kubanjwe as if yazi ngcono nasemshadweni ngoba khona ithimba lakamkhwenyana lakamakoti bayaqhudelana kodwa babuye bahlangane kube umshado. We can't allow these things to happen. Once these bad tendencies start to happen, we must tackle them. Now, when addressing your provincial congress, before addressing other broader organizational questions, it's also important to address matters Two matters that are specific to this province. In particular, we're raising this because they are worrying developments. The first development was what we called the July 2021 counter-revolutionary violent offensive. Then yenzeke last year. Kwayo lutho kuze kwakwanegama lakhona kuyatatshwa. Now, this thing actually what it did is that it exploited high levels of poverty and unemployment in our country and produced massive opportunistic ways of looting and destruction. We are of the view as the SACP that this offensive was calculated and planned. It was not accidental, Maqaba. It also spread to the Gauteng province. Now, the second thing I'll talk about, of course, is the recent disasters. Angazi mthembu noma niqala izolo ngike nasukuma yini ukuthi sikhalela abantu bakithi abalahlekelwe impilo zabo. Ngoku nikwenzeni? Hayi ke angingakuphindi. Ngikhombisa ukuthi ni province ye communist party understand the situation enikuyona. Siyakubonga lokho ngizokhuluma nangako kwesibili. Ukuthi sikutheni kahle kahle lento yale disaster yenzeka la KZN yama floods. Akungoba nithakathiwe. Ziyazi phela la KZN yaziswa kabi lonto ikakhulukazi nje uma uqhamuka komhlaba uyalingana ngeke ngisho ukuthi ubani uqhamuka komhlaba uyalingana. Khona lensizwa yamahlaya ubani yakwa Shembe uSimphiwe khona elihlaya lakhe la kamhlaba uyalingana ngelethi kwakunomisi umhlaba uyalingana so kubizwe intombi kuthiwa uba unamba 11111 winile umisi umhlaba uyalingana Winnie TV smart TV kanye ne laptop phendule intombi sosuka dlala ngathi nje lana imfene ziwino abanjani omntakabani besithi so wini imfene nathi yini lento eninginikayo. Let's talk about this counter-revolutionary offensive. Comrades, I just want to say that this thing that happened in July last year was planned and promised, sometimes brazenly by those behind it. It was at some stage well-funded, relatively professional, but we want to say it was completely and hopelessly inept strategically. The plotters deliberately triggered, but then lost control over the wave of mass looting, mostly, of course, by the most marginalized strata in our society. But we believe that the shopping malls were not the prime target of the conspiracy. The prime target of that conspiracy was to disrupt the economy quite seriously, especially Motorgate to N3. The Minister of Transport, Nobala, I hope one of the things I will do would be to sort out Law N3. Law N3 is going to be impossible to drive through. Just too many trucks. It's not sustainable, but it was a target. Linked to the earlier protests by some of the drivers about drivers who are foreign nationals. And what is disturbing is that this was also done in real mafia style. But the question that you must address is that there is talk sometimes in our province, which the reason why we lost elections, local government elections badly, is because we handled this thing recklessly. Is that true? That we lost local government elections because this thing of this July insurrection was done recklessly? It surely cannot be true. This thing was a reflection of a deeper problem that if you go deep and analyze it, because part of this looting and this insurrectionary offensive did come from inside our own ranks. by elements, some of whom were at the top of looting the state. That is the truth and the reality we must face. That is actually the truth. And therefore, the task of the SACP here, in relation to some things, is to properly analyze this and then say what is to be done. There's not two ways about it, comrades. The main thing that we need to do is to go to the ground and organize. I want to raise a provocative question since we are going to our Congress, the 15th National Congress. We resolved at our 14th Congress at Velasa, we want to build a left popular front. That resolution is correct. We said we want to build that left popular front in order to build popular forces and unite them to drive the national democratic revolution. It's not a substitute for the ANC. But also, it's not just automatically an extension of the ANC. It must seek to mobilize the motive forces of the national democratic revolution, especially the working class. It's correct. Maybe it's not even one left popular front that we are talking about nationally. Maybe we are talking about a multiplicity of left popular fronts, even in localities, even in districts. Sifune i-left popular front ezomobilize abantu around stock theft. Ziyebiwe inkomo la. Siyakwazi lokho ikakhulukazi endaweni zasemakhaya. Ngike ngaya le ngaseLoscope. Ngathi ngidli breakfast kwenye indawo kwafika abasebenzi bezongibingelela. Ngiye ngijabuleka uma ngibingelelwa abasebenzi. Kusho ukuthi basangibona Mthembu. But when the man was telling you, safi inkomo zethu ziyantshontsha. Ngiyemjabula Mvelase phela uma ngisabona weComrade Zolo. Ayikho into engiphathe kabi empilweni yami kuyo yonke into Comrade Zolo in my life as General Secretary of the SACP. Angaze ngiphume ngenyala egroundini ngomini. Ngenyala. You know, I'm sitting ngenyala ngitshela lenyala comfortable nakamnandi kangaka. Umuntu wagcina nini ukugibela inyala. Ngikhishwa abasebenzi. Ugeneral Secretary weCommunist Party ubalekiswa amaphoyisa, ubalekiswa kubasebenzi. Hayi ngeke maComrade. Asizenze lezi zinto noma sithukuthele kangakanani kodwa nibuye nganene. Awuyihlazo leli. 24 years as General Secretary. Ngiphuma ngemoto yamaphoyisa grounding. Ngijapha abasebenzi. Kumayday Rustenburg. No. Sengikhumbula labasebenzi engibabone ngiseLoscope ukuthi awungangcono ukuthi ibona lapho bezongibingelela kamnandi. But awunobhala wamakomani sikunjani kodwa nami ngivume. Hayi laba abangikhiphe ngelokhuzana ngoshova. Ngeke Comrade Zolo. No. Abasebenzi bane-right yokuprotest kodwa kwakubuhlungu kuyasho kodwa ama-comrades ephathi mayengangco nenkapi esilami nento yami ebomvu ngihleli kwinyala. Hayi ababuhlungu leya nto kuma-comrades hayi khona. Hawu angaze ngixoshwe abasebenzi nje. Now, we say we must build a left popular front or left popular fronts. It's correct. Correct. But maybe there is a bigger question. If we want to share another task that we must talk about and debate. Can we build a left popular front if we don't have a strong and militant working class movement? That is the bedrock and the foundation for building whatever other fronts we want to build. Isn't the prior question perhaps the building of a militant, socialist, working class movement? Ekhokhelo abasebenzi at the heart, with the trade union movement there and all other forces. and also to begin to do the things that we have said we are going to do as the Communist Party, to say, yes, we are in alliance with COSATU, we must deepen our alliance with COSATU, but at the same time, we must contribute towards encouraging worker action across federations on matters that are of common interest to the working class. And that's part of the foundation of building a strong working class movement. That's what we need to be thinking about. You don't deal with counter-revolution by analyzing it endlessly. You deal with counter-revolution by organizing against it. And the Communist Party in this province has got a very important role to play. Now, if you go deeper into this counter-revolution, other things also become clear. We also have got mafia-style type of organizations that we are beginning to see in the country and here in KZN as well. Like the so-called business forums, because those are criminal business networks. That's what they are. They go around demanding monies from people. By the way, both the counter-revolution and these business forums, one of their impact is to act against the interests of the working class. If we are disrupting workplaces for the workers, what are you trying? If we are disrupting the building of roads and dams and everything, you are actually undermining the provisions of services to working class communities. And you just don't do that on your own. But the unfortunate part, there is a tendency now, comrades, that has happened, is that there is beginning to be an overlap between some criminal networks and some of our structures in the movement. You go to Mamelodi, kukhona izinto okuthiwa Boko Haram, abafarasai, Comrade Nopal, am I pronouncing it correctly? They are part, some of them, of our own political structures. Yet this is a criminal element. There is no way to defeat this except to organize a militant working class movement to be at the heart of driving the National Democratic Revolution, because these are the things that are posing a threat to the National Democratic Revolution. I'm sure you have got a lot to say about this as this Congress. I'm sure you have a lot to say as this KZN Congress about these matters. Nokuchaza ukuthi kahle kahle oh James Nxumalo bakhishwa kanjani obani. Kahle kahle. Andikhishwa ngani ukuthi wemkhathwa andifuna ukuseva ama-interests amadela ngokubona. And we mustn't shy away from this so that we know exactly what we are going to deal with. By the way, remember, if you are going to be building, if you are going to be building a working class movement, as always see corruption, if we need development, you are going to clash with elements, this criminal political network. Definitely. Which means, therefore, as you organize, you must also organize to be able to protect yourselves and your campaigns against attacks from those forces. That is a fact. I'm not saying I'm not funibang. Yala mize ngikusho lokho la KZN wegok. Ungaze mfowethu ungifake kumabona kude uthi nango kunzimana. Sekusukile kwakadambuza ngoba ngasedimpa impela mfowethu. Kodwa angisho njalo. We must mobilize our people also to defend their right to organize and mobilize in defense of the National Democratic Revolution. Now, I'm going to come back to this matter very briefly. Just now. Of course, comrades, this thing, on July 21, also exposed something else of how compromised our security structures are. The police could not act. The intelligence could not provide reliable information, despite claims to the contrary. That's a fact. Because part of the intelligence capacity has been destroyed by what we call state capture networks. Which means, possibly through state capture, we were well on our way on becoming a mafia state. Because we need to understand what is it that we are actually dealing with. The strategy failed for the counter-revolution to try, because part of it was to try and put to government way to in a dizzy mode, to test to low government to strong. That failed, it did not succeed. But let's not take this thing for granted to think that this must not. This provincial congress must scientifically analyze all these things, but not for the sake of analysis. As Marx said, philosophers have interpreted the world in various ways. The point, however, is to change it. We will analyze because we want to change, not for the sake of the analysis. The other thing, comrades, facing the KZN, not KZN alone, it's facing the whole world, but KZN has just got a bad taste of it. It's not the first time, by the way. The recent floods and disasters. The fact of the matter, comrades, is that the cause of this, the 500 years of capitalist greed, is destroying the environment, is destroying climate, it's changing climate. It's capitalism. Because capitalism speaks about growth irrespective of anything. And by growth, we mean accumulation. Well, our draft program that I hope we are talking to here, that we have released, talks very eloquently about what is happening to our environment. So these floods we are seeing are not the last, unfortunately, Makama. They are not the last. They are still going to happen here in KZN already. There's prediction that this weekend we might be facing another thing, and it's going to happen in other parts of the country and in other parts of the world. Which means that every struggle we wage must have certain common features. It must also be a struggle against gender inequality, against women's oppression. It must also be a struggle to protect our climate and to protect our environment at the same time. It's very important. I've always spoken with the Communist Party, they have only sounded up Wentworth. Nayaga refinery has closed. But the fact of the matter is that the situation in Wentworth has been very polluted. And the Communist Party must take up the campaigns for a clean environment. Of course, we also must look at job protection, comrades. We are not saying we must just be careless. We must also look at protecting jobs. That's why I was happy when I had the comrade Ukwete this morning, calling to order that CEO, yes, SBI, who says he can withstand a strike for years if need be. I'm glad Utu Comrade Ukwete is calling him to order. That he has no interest in mining gold. His interest is to destroy the working class so that he can earn 300 million rands a year, which is what he's earning. Now, I want to pose another challenge to you. In this Congress, we'll be raising this also in the National Congress. You know, comrades, one of the things that we need to seriously be campaigning about, you know, when it's been raining, you just notice, by the way, that we just have no stormwater drainage system in this country. This stormwater drainage is plastic, which is a campaign, by the way, which the Communist Party must take up. The idea of plastic, comrades, has got huge negative impact on the environment. In fact, if truth be told, much as we have done a lot as this democratic government, I mustn't be misread as if I'm saying we haven't done a lot. But is that a lot of our infrastructure that we are surviving on is still the old infrastructure built by apartheid. There's no stormwater drainage, even in the cities. In the townships, they were never there in any case. And in many of our rural areas, they were never there. One of the biggest campaigns we want to urge the Communist Party to take up, and I wish that this Congress, no bala, you can discuss this is to actually fight for and campaign for public employment programs to build infrastructure in our townships and villages. Alright, comrades, there is a lot of opportunity that we can create public employment programs through public works and other government departments in order to be able to build what we call climate resilient infrastructure. I've never seen like this, Mina. A beautiful house, let alone let's say a beautiful house at Durban North. It moved from where it was. Isondele komunye nomakhelwane omusha. Umngane wami oyiklani oyithanda kakhulu uthi ngathi hayi I'm your neighbor now ngabe kusho njalo. Yet it's a very serious thing. How much more kuma townships emalokishini ethu nasemakhaya la kungekho khona lutho. If there is one campaign we need to take up, comrades, put pressure on government that we want public employment programs where we stay, run together with communities, not through tenders, in order to build and have climate resilient infrastructure and provision of basic services. That's the challenge, by the way, of some amalogish and to really begin to have jobs. I would like this Congress to discuss this. How do we do this? I'm going to be challenging the National Congress on behalf of the Central Committee to say, how do we actually do that? In other words, I'm saying the only way to revitalize our townships and villages is these public employment programs to create jobs. By the way, comrades, the state of our townships, especially in the big metros like this one, is bad. And the level of social decay also that's creeping into our communities, it's bad. To hear what last year in South Africa, about 400 10 to 14-year-olds gave birth to children, is telling us that there is something that is really going wrong. The levels of drug and alcohol abuse is so much. We can't fold our arms and complain. Or like this analyst who President abekhuluma ngasizolo. Goga ngikhulumi ke nawe la, vali indlebe ngoba mhlawumbe uzothi ngikhuluma nawe. Kuthiwa no thina si-specializer of speaking truth to power. Indlebe wena wenzani? Ngaphandle kokuvula umnyobo, yep, you're speaking truth to power. What are you doing to be part of solving these problems that are actually facing society? Because we need everyone. Don't say would you speak truth to power. Here as communists, we don't speak truth to power. We analyze power, and also we analyze how we're going to build working class power through a militant working class movement in order to change conditions for the better for our people. That's what we are about. That's why the comrades, we say, this is just one campaign I'm leaving you with. Asiyofuna imisebenzi emphakathi emalokishini nasey'ndaweni zethu ezisemakhaya. Ikhona imali uhulumeni angakwazi ukuyisebenzisa. Inkinga enye yebiwe. Laba baye imali asibaconfront. Baphume kwahulumeni ngoba awukwazi ukweba imali uma uqhubeka usebenzela uhulumeni. Now, I want to also say this. Give a bit more, not that I've not been doing Marxist analysis, but just sharpen it a little bit. We've said as the SACP, what is it that we are really faced with in our movement right now, which has also led us to lose our elections, local government elections, in the manner that we have done. However, like KZN ngathi ngifuna ukuyithatha niyiphinisele enkateni. Ngathi niyiphinisele enkateni le province. Indlela esiperforme ngayo nje comrades was so bad. So bad. Inkatha ina solution for the problems of the people of this country. It's us who have the solutions, but provided with the right comrades. What is happening? Let's do this as an analysis. It looks like, comrades, a lot of our structures in the movement have been captured by factions who have organized themselves around capturing the structures of the movement and then capture municipal budgets. And then control those municipal budgets and distribute patronage, and continue to say we can only be able to do this if we have got these branches of our movement that are closed to anyone who is not part of the faction. And we call that a bureaucratic petty bourgeoisie. What do we mean by that big English phrase? Simply we mean people who have become dependent on controlling our movement and controlling the state so that they steal money from the state to distribute favors and also to enrich themselves. That's the bureaucratic bourgeoisie that seems to be threatening to take over our movement. If you then start to build left popular fronts and the working class movement, the militant, in structures, because in front disrupt the patronage and all this. Does it mean if we start structures which we say ANC? Does it mean that? No. But it may mean that structures the ANC if they are controlled by these elements. That's what we must tell ourselves. That is why at our special National Congress, comrades, we said, and I hope that Congress reaffirms this resolution, that whereas communists who are being marginalized and the local government processes that are agreed to by the alliance have been stolen, we are not duty-bound to go and vote for the ANC in those areas. We must consider going out to contest ourselves together with other progressive forces. Hayikhona makhelwane ngeke sivume le kufika kukhethwa i-comrade la i-community meeting endleleni yakwayisi sekunelinye igama hayi leli elikade liphumelana igama sekungena omunye umuntu esingamazi then thina njengey'wunguwungu zamakomanisi hambani novota ngoba nine-discipline. No, we don't have discipline for nonsense. We've got discipline for truth and people's wishes. We do not want to contest elections in competition with the ANC. We want to contest together as the alliance. But where the ANC allows people that its own processes are stolen, we are not going to be party to that. That's what we said at our special National Congress. And we must still reaffirm that resolution here and in the National Congress. So, comrades, then, if we are to do all these things that I'm talking about, we need a strong party and a united party. I've already spoken about this, that we must defeat all these tendencies that are wrong. Let's not run away from trying to, let's not give up on the ANC. I want to make that plea, Makaba. Yes, a corner seven cartel and who are saying no. Cartel ANC police. Let us not give up on the ANC, because if we give up on the ANC, we are giving up on ourselves. The task we have is to revitalize and renew the ANC and reconfigure the alliance. How do we revitalize and reconfigure the ANC? Not by sitting in endless meetings and boardrooms in alliance meetings. Those alliance meetings are important, but by building a strong militant working class movement from the ground and building this left popular front. This has decided the ANC whether it wants to be part of those forces or not. But that may help to revitalize the ANC by organizing and mobilizing. Listen to this. By organizing and mobilizing the motive forces who stand to benefit from a national democratic revolution, we will also at the same time be revitalizing and renewing the African National Congress. Maybe ANC has to renew your order from inside. Also, it needs job. oqhamuka ngaphandle from us as allies umjovo omkhulu oqhamuka ngaphandle ijampi ANC uzwe lo mjovo ufikile nabo abantu sebela in order to rebuild this dear movement to us. Because if truth be told, none of these opposition parties are capable of doing what a progressive, renewed ANC is capable of doing and is supposed to be doing. Yes. We built this ANC, we contributed to building it because it is the only movement that is capable of uniting all the African people in this country, irrespective of their language or ethnic background. And that's a huge achievement for the African National Congress. No other party. I'm going to mention our parties. I mean, I don't like to mention our parties in our platform. They are so chauvinistic, they are so racialistic, they are so narrow. What is it that they want? Can they really unite the African people as the foundation for building a non-racial South Africa? No. So we must not give up on the ANC. But not giving up on the ANC does not mean we don't build a working class movement, which is militant, which is socialist, no bad. Siyayifuna lapha eRichards Bay lo movement siyibona iphila ngaloko ukuthi mangento esingazazi lapha ku-RBM nibanga nangi sengibona nobhala wakho wala bebekhetha nabo ngazi ukuthi kuhamba kanjani ngibonile ngizwile i-ANC bikhetha lapha angazi kuhambe kanjani sawuthola analysis nami ngi-understand nenzani ko-RBM yini le niyenzayo naku kufuna ukuphuma idumbu for what? But unless you build a strong working class movement rooted at Richards Bay and Sempangeni, we are not going to correct some of the challenges that we have there. That's the main message, comrades. But also we say the alliance cannot continue to operate as if it's prior to 1994. There are certain basic things. Now, when we raise this, some of our comrades, but none of the Communist Party that's very unfair. Angikwazi ukuthi uChristian sihamba phezulu kwakhe nje umathamba profile ukuthi wayefuna isikhulu. Wayefela ukukhulula lelizwe. Namhlanje ngizothi ngoba seniseyikhundleni bese amakomanisa leli ikhundla. That's an insult to the Communist Party. We have been in this struggle for 100 years. Ebesu celebrated last year to liberate and reconstruct this country. If communists are in government at various levels, it's not because Mafuni Kundla, it's not because of the mistake, it's a continuation of liberating and rebuilding a different South Africa. I'm so to ngoba sense ikundleni. Sibuya sisasazela na abantu esingabazi ukuthi bavela kumvanje. Ubanekela manje lo sezothi communist party ufuna inkundla. Ubani wena wakabani ovela ufike nini la embuthweni? Samukela wonke umuntu embuthweni, but khona abafika nje bezositshela zonke lezi zinto. Surely it can't be true. Ukuthi that is our aim. We have the deepest interest in defense of building the South Africa that we want as South African communists. Misali ukuzofihla amanyala ethu ngokuzama ukusituka ukuthi silwele ukuba seyikhundleni thina. Asinamsebenzi neyikhundla thina. So siyakwazi nokuxoshwa futhi eyikhundleni ukuthi into enjani. Ukusebenza ukuthi ulimele iqiniso. Mina ngike ngahlala for 8 months ne-briefcase yami eseduze komnyango. Ngihamba ngithi comrade sorry. Engasafani ngiyithathe le briefcase yami bafowethu. Ngivele ngihambe bahlala. Akho umuntu own ugovernment. Abakuxosha. Simele iqiniso. Sasange sithi uma sihlele ne-briefcase ukuthi ukuze ngisondeze le briefcase bandla besihambe siyokhuleka, siyokotha la kothiwa khona. No. Khumbule sabaholi be-Communist Party asothiwa njengembawula thina. Umholo uthanda ukuthiwa kuthiwa uvakashela usizobona omvelase uswaba njani kodwa usizokotha mfowethu njengembawula asiyifuni leyo umholo ufuna ukuthiwa njengembawula. South African communists are nothing else but the sons and daughters of the workers and the poor of this country. Asilutho singane zabawashi uma usibuza ukuthi obani samakomaniso. Bona labawashi abaningi bethu la abanye bethu la sifundile sigqokiswa amajazi labawashi. Siyizinto ezingconywana namhlanje ilabawashi. Okuthiwa abenzi lutho uma sabantu bengafuni ukuthi kulokhuzo. Nazi ingane zethu ziyagraduate manje. Ziyagida la KZN. Kumnandi kudelile ngishaya ukuvalo kodwa man. Uthatha 6 hours the graduation. Ngiyaliphele phela. But it's nice. That's who we are as sons and daughters of the working class. Sangizoqeda ke ama-comrades ngoba sisishayile nesikhathi sami. We cannot be able to address the problems of this country unless the Communist Party leads an effort to build a militant socialist working class movement, which must be the foundation for whatever France would build. And we don't seek permission, comrades, when identity show. As a Communist Party, we must have our own direct, independent relationship with the people. Okay? But my contradiction, and we point out before Mqede, because I can't do that without pointing this out. Our township said, Nama villages, emakhaya, nasemadolobheni. SeThekwini khona uMlazi, khona uMashu, khona Claremont, khona isizwe seClaremont la. Ngibala nje indawo enkulu. They are melting pots. Kunama problems amaningi lawo ebengikhuluma ngawo. But that's why we are organized as the ANC and the SACP. That's where our branches are. How come? How come? All our branches are there, but we are losing elections. What is happening? Again, analyze again. Why? Who comrade Uzor? No bad. I go to Clavena Sikarastenberg, SeThekwini. Sikarastenberg. There is another class conundrum also that we must solve. The most densely operated sector of South African society that is organized in terms of trade unions is the public service. Masikhuluma ngendawo nje nama unions are strong njengamanje, it's the public service. But how come we have a weak state? When we've got progressive trade unions like NEHAU, like SATU, like PROCU, and others, but we have a weak state. How come, Comrade Noma Rashid, ukuthi nikhona ni strong and even ibahle ngani zakwethu lapha ku public service, but nathi state capture senzeka lapha ngwethu. Ungano weva umuntu kenzeka la kunina ko 5 to la. How does that happen? Why? Why do we have strong progressive trade union organization in the public service, but corruption is running amok and the state is becoming weak? Does it mean that to have a progressive trade union movement in the public service does not automatically translate into building a progressive developmental state? Strong, what women weak. Why look strong be union abonga translate? Angibek umuntu icala njalo ngifuna analyze. Could it be that historically states said when we built it from 1994, maybe there were certain neoliberal measures that we put into place that have also weakened the trade union movement? Or maybe it strengthens the trade union movement yet in the public sector is only focusing on certain things but not looking at its role in terms of broader developmental goals. That's it's like organize a blast. Nakwamash, wonke ama-branch e-Communist Party akhona nawo ANC akhona lapha, but we are becoming weak and we are losing elections. in the very same areas which were in the forefront in the defeat of the apartheid in the 1980s. Does it mean the presence of ANC and SACP branches does not automatically translate into building people's power in our communities? If that is the case, why? Some VD branches, SACP, VD branches. No matter what we have done is that we have ended up with weak wards because we are focused on VD branches. I don't know. You have to answer that question now and go into our Congress as well. Sengiyavala my comrades. We are glad Sinama comrades who have come here from the rest of the continent, of our continent. Because one of the key challenges that we are faced with, that we are going to be raising at our National Congress, is that the world has entered again a new and very dangerous state, which if we don't mobilize internationally, working class solidarity, around, I would argue, building a peace movement in the world, we are going to be in trouble. Because what is happening? When the world becomes to be dangerous, you must look for one sign. The most dominant country at that time is beginning to lose some of its power. United States hegemony now is under serious challenge, especially from a country like China. And because the US is desperate, it's trying to increase its influence in the world as it sees that there is a danger of that influence being lost. What does it do? It first says, let's try and consolidate the power of NATO, the military alliance. NATO is a military alliance. It's not a political alliance. It's military. Aim is to spill blood. That is the aim of NATO, nothing else, in order for the United States and its allies to become strong. That is why, comrades, we have got conflict in the Ukraine. The conflict in the Ukraine, in essence, is as a result of the attempt of the United States to use NATO close to the Russian border, because imperialism at the moment sees Russia as the next, possibly easier target. But the ultimate aim is China, because that is where the US influence is being challenged economically. So in Russia, but it's imperialism which has done that. You know, those of us, comrades, who know of the Soviet Union, when it collapsed, when it was about to collapse, there was an agreement made. For the two Germans, the West German and East German, to unite and become one country. In NATO is not going to move 1 inch towards the east, towards Russia. An agreement made by the Soviet Union. But the Soviet Union, unfortunately, collapsed. And as soon as it collapsed, Clinton started dismembering Yugoslavia through NATO. NATO now is doing what it likes, breaking agreements which were inherited by Russia, that NATO is not going to move to the east. So the primary source of the conflict in Ukraine is US imperialism. Now, some of the news in South Africa, News 24, Oban, they come and feed us lies. Who sponsored KZN and Ukraine? It's some foundation called the Brenters Foundation, your open eye. Did you know that? To go, but the aim is to try and undermine the position of our government. The position of our government is correct. Let there be negotiations to resolve the Ukrainian conflict, not arms, because we don't want war, we want peace as South Africa. Steinhazen is being sent, it's a counter-revolutionary visit, actually, to undermine and discredit our own government and the position of our government, which as the SACP we think it's a correct position, given the fact that the source of the conflict is not Russia. The source of the conflict is the expansion of NATO to the borders of Russia. So, my comrades, our call is that no to imperialist war in Ukraine or any part of the world. The other thing also that disturbs us is that the whole focus now is on the Ukraine. Look at this democracy we are told. We are told that the United States and Western countries are the biggest democracies in the world. What have they done? They have shut Russian television. They have shut any foreign media platforms, including in YouTube. But I'm very active and young YouTube, I'm YouTube, but I sat on YouTube much. Sputnik radio, which is Russian radio, is shut. You can't get it. I used to listen it from my phone. So much for democracy. Where is democracy there? In the South African media? Is it criticizing this? No. They are part of it because also largely they are feeding us lies. Even the South African Broadcasting Corporation, the SACP, you ask them, why are you only interviewing the Ukrainian ambassador? Also, what we are not told, Ukraine has banned the Communist Party in Ukraine. Ukraine. Siyathithana lama comrades ase Ukraine ngeendlela zethu. Ngomakomanisa wavinjwa. Underground lapha. Avalelweni. Because that's a neo-fascist government in Ukraine, by the way. We are not saying Ukrainians, ordinary Ukrainians, must therefore suffer. We don't want war. We want peace. And it's a pity because that Ukrainian government has allowed itself, at the expense of its own people, to be an instrument in the hands of imperialism, not for the interests of their own. Even Europe, it's so loyal to the United States, it's even compromising its own energy through gas that it is getting from Russia. These sanctions are punishing Europe itself, but it's willing to go along because it's thinking that it's defending the interest of the United States. That is the truth about what is happening now. That's what we must go and be telling people and analyzing and using our own media platforms to express against this. So we want peace. Comrades, it's always nice to be at party congresses in the provinces and in the district. It's always nice to be here at Moses Mabhida as our single largest province. Have a successful conference, comrades. Provide leadership through your numbers, not by imposing yourself. And I want to say this. Let's not allow that Congress to be disturbed by anything that is regressive. Because we pinned the end of food with Congress. Go build a militant working class movement. Reach out to the progressive trade union movement. I can't sit down without saying this. Kukhona danger khona my comrades. Okufunakala ukuthi siyibheke. Comrade Duma, there is an offensive which is trying to cause a rift between SACP and COSAP and some of its affiliates. We must watch this. The SACP has got to be very mature. Because we know also ukuthi kunabantu abafuna ukuthi drive a wedge. As Lenin said, if you allow a wedge to be driven between the communist movement and the workers' movement, both of them will be defeated. If you go different ways, you're all going to be defeated. Also, let's not allow ourselves to be provoked. We have been criticized for our inability of having not been able to pay abasebenzi be-Communist Party. Comrades, asiyenzi ngoba sithanda lo. Asinayo imali. Asinayo imali. Uma sihluleka ukukhokhela abasebenzi bethu, imali engekho. Asiyebi imali kwahulumeni. yokuzokhokhela abasebenzi la kwa-Communist Party sibakhokhele ngemali engcolile. Asikwenzi lokho maqabane. Siyacela ukuthi kungahlekiswa ngathi ngalokho. Ezifa sibathanda abasebenzi. Siyabathanda abasebenzi bonke including laba bethu. That is why ke comrades sicela ukuthi nonke ke niba ama fundraiser sizofaka imali la emakomanisini ngoba akekho umuntu ozositholela imali ngaphandle kwethu. Angazi noma ngiyayizwa ndodo. Umsebenzi wemali akubona ka treasurer, akubona ka general secretary, akubona ka comrade Usoli phela, akubona ka comrade Umthembu, owethu sonke ukuthi si fundraise imali ukuze sikwazi ukuthi le communist party iqhube isebenze. Ukungakhokhela abasebenzi bethu siyacela ukuthi kungahlekiswa ngabo bakithi. Siyacela. Sibona abantu abanenhliziyo ezimbi, siyabathanda abasebenzi. Ma comrades, siqhubekani nisebenzele lo mbutho wakotana. Umbutho wamabhida. SACP yasetshenzilwa. Alala. Iphathi yasetshenzilwa. Alala. Ayithengwa ngethenda. Hey! Hey! Ayithengwa ngethenda. Alala. Ikhosati yasetshenzilwa. Alala. Ikhosati yasetshenzilwa. Alala. Uhalala. Hayibo. Awusongezi. Uhalala. Alala. eNCA yasetshenzilwa. Alala. eNCA yasetshenzilwa. Alala. Ayathengwa ngethenda. Ayathengwa ngethenda. Thank you.
Siente la completa. Bella, uyaphi? Sikhona. No, but uyaphi? Bengicela a quick one here for challenges facing abasebenzi, repo rate, Eskom nani.
Oh yes.
Yeah, bengicela siyenzele ngapha Mphephethu. Ngizocela ume ngala. Uzobheka ngapha. Umbonga mthinze insizwa yasencwane. Okay. Yes. Ngakhona yonke indawo ogcwala. Ubathola yonke indawo. Sizoba brief uzwile kuthiwa kufanele undize uphume. Okay, mhlambe singalinda bakuthole. Noma sibe siqhubeka ngoba sikho live mhlambe sizophoza uma befika nje. Bengicela ukuthi kancane into Mphephethu. Yes. Okay, all right. Maphungula kunjani? Ngiyajabula. Hayi ngeke izobafika. Ngiyakubona uma ugqoke izimpahla.
Bona kulo.
Ufake izimpahla.
Cha ithi ngisukubuso.
Okay, yabantu abantu abadala wangiphoxa nje yini ngiyajabula uma ngibona umaphungula eshaye ezempahla kanje ya umbutho kahle usu-ready ngonesi. Okay, Mphephethu, thank you very much for your time. Let's talk about the current state of the situation in South Africa. Workers are under siege. The cost of living is getting tougher and tougher. Repo rate, fuel hikes, Eskom. It's not looking good. Is the SACP still the vanguard of abasebenzi to champion the struggle of workers?
Yes, we still are. We are very much concerned about the current economic situation. The rising cost of living, the prices, as you say. That is why our main message we're saying here. The real critical task facing workers is to build a very strong and militant working class movement, which is actually going to take up these things that we are talking about. The issues of job creation, the issue of confronting monopolies, the issue of prices, the issue to unite the workers in the widest possible way, even across federations, the trade unions, for instance, so that we are actually able to fight these things. That is also why the message is, we have got very strong trade unions, for example, in the public service. But corruption is running amok. The state is not as strong as we want. What is it that we are not doing, which we are supposed to be doing, if we have a strong trade union movement? Similarly, that is why I'm saying we're losing elections in the townships and in some of our villages. Yet that is where all the branches of the ANC and the branches of the SACP are. So the focus then was to say the real foundation to fight all these challenges that are facing us is to build a very strong and militant, united working class movement and voice, because nobody else is going to speak for the trade union movement.